This conference came out of a conversation about bringing leaders together to consider how we were personally doing through the crisis and how we were leading our organisations. In my presentations next week, I want to think more deeply about our emotional engagement, the scenarios that we are working with, and the models that help us understand them. I joined the Royal Foundation of St.Katharine just over 6 months ago, and I thought I knew what I was coming to: a retreat centre, a conference centre, an event space that works with major charities, not-for-profits, corporates, to give them a good space physically to come together in our beautiful urban sanctuary. A place of prayer, a place of peace. I spent half my career in management consulting and finance, and then the second half as a priest, a church leader, a charity worker. And I was looking forward to a relatively quiet post in London. And then 4 weeks ago, everything changed. All that we did was no longer required, but it was considered actually harmful and was to stop. With a staff of 50, a cost base of over 2 million, and zero income for the foreseeable future. What to do? Do we furlough all the staff, shut up shop and try and get emergency funding and hibernate, or something else? We asked the question, in a national crisis, how could we make the best contribution? First of all, we shut the cafe and turned it into a takeaway convenience store, supplying loo rolls, eggs, bread, and flat white coffee for people on their daily exercise. I think we've kept, through good coffee, a number of home workers sane. Then we looked at a volunteer network. There's over 230 volunteers now that we host at St. Katharine's who are supporting vulnerable people in the community with supplies. And then we reached out to all the agencies and said, how can we put our 45 bedrooms and 7 conference rooms to best use? And the National Health Service commissioned us to do step-down care, convalescing care for those that are leaving hospital but not yet ready to go home. So we'd found our purpose. I wonder how you and your organisations have coped in the last few weeks. And in thinking about the changes that have happened, it's important we engage emotionally, how we feel and how we think as we reflect on these things. I kept a journal and tried to record my thinking and what I was noticing in others and the emotional response as well. My way of capturing these things and processing it was to create a spoken word type of poem, and I'd like to offer it to you. It's a personal thing. It records my ups and downs, my emotional journey, and in offering it to you, I'm hoping it will trigger some of your own thinking and maybe you'll react to it. It's a bit raw and emotional, so please forgive me for that, but it's designed to provoke a conversation and thinking. So here we are, spoken word reflection on the last few weeks. Strange times, everything's changed, death news 24 hours a day, hospitals built, morgues on ice, doctors and nurses giving their lives. Where are your family when you need them most, locked outside to keep them safe? Chaplain comes to call to give you your rights in a spacesuit too. She's risking her life with the intention to give you connection, tablet in her hand. Who do you want to call? Not much time to give words to all those whom you love, but you can't be with when you need them most. I didn't believe this could happen to us. It was a foreign thing for other people in other countries, other places. They locked down, we carried on, hugged and kissing, avoiding the question of what we were giving and receiving, thinking we could have it all, but the waves of grief were lapping at our shore, and so we find ourselves indoors, locked down with family and hopefully friends, together in ways that we could not have imagined, whilst separated in strange ways from the whole world. Just stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. Accept a walk or a run or a deadly mission to get our provisions, keeping our distance with tape on the floor, hoping today there will be more toilet paper. Is that how it ends? Not with a bang, but with a struggle with your neighbour as to who will be more comfortable in the loo? It's better now. The panic buying's gone, but they're still buying panic and fear from the ether, paranoid anxiety fueling irrational brains, desperately looking for someone or something to blame. Politicians too, they'll take the rap. Some blame Mother Earth and resisting the vaccines that may eventually save us from our slavery to fear. It really is a virus. It's not the 5G or Gaia or rogue state. We've all realised we're more fragile than we knew. This house of cards that COVID-19 blew. So many connections that we thought were joined up just stopped working when the Chinese shut up shop and fell apart when we looked for their aid. We've been relying too long on global trade with supply chains so long they're so disjointed. When one piece fails, we're all disappointed. But there are new connections getting made, people coming together for mutual aid, neighbours united who'd never really met, shopping for the vulnerable without counting the debt, with food and medicine still getting through, 2 steps back. That's what you do. And people are working in strange new ways with Skype, Zoom, Hangouts, even though we're now paid by the Chancellor, who's so generous, spending money from the future to give so many a universal basic income. State control over our jobs and our lives with the best of intentions. Now huge interventions. Have too many walks and the police give you a fine. The sacrifices made to keep us alive. And so we look for a better future. This all will pass and we will wake from this terrible dream and once more be able to hug a stranger. And maybe that will become a thing. And so we will hold on to what we've learned as the planet pressed pause and we were forced to question our purpose and values and what really matters and how we stay connected in beautiful ways and care for the vulnerable, value key workers and change our pace and redirect our attention whilst we remember those who had no time to say goodbye. I wonder what stands out for you over the last few weeks? What images or changes have hit you the most? How you've coped with the emotional roller coaster? Have you had the support that you've needed? As leaders, we hold so much together, and the emotional impact is significant as we lead our organisations through uncharted waters. And for me, the soulful practices we're talking about in this conference have helped me as I've tried to navigate change with the Royal Foundation. And so next week we're thinking about the crisis and how it brings out models of how things have changed and how we adapt. Crises bring us to question our organisation's purpose and our own purpose as leaders. Crises allow moral courage to come through. We won't forget the hotel that sacked all its staff and made them homeless in the first few days, will we? So what next? How will life look like when things get back to the new normal? Here are a few scenarios I've been wondering about and given them a name. The planet's taken a breather, a new environmental priority. Short and simple supply chains are now needed. Remote working, the new norm. Health and well-being, a new priority for the nation. Agility capital, the value of flexibility through change. Or maybe strong borders persisting, creating a nationalism plus. These are just headlines of changes that we might be seeing in the future, or not. What do you think? I'd love to know your ideas of what the significant changes will be that we need to plan for and prepare for. As a filter I found helpful in looking at scenarios is the organisational development work of Simon Walker. His work on front and backstage in leadership is interesting, and his organisational models have a lot to offer. Front stage is what's seen and visible, it's what's public and disclosed. Backstage is the hidden work, the development work, the unseen work, the work behind the scenes. It's a bit like a theatre. Theatre has front and backstage. So do organisations. So do we as individuals. And we all have scenarios that we are working with, whether we have stated them or whether we just assume them without really thinking about it. So I'd like to invite you to join us next week as we explore emotional engagement in scenarios for the future and models to help us consider them. This will help us all bring the very best out of this global crisis.